The NFL markets itself as the perfect product. Every game matters, every play is executed flawlessly, and every moment is pure entertainment gold. But here's what they don't want you to know. There are games so embarrassing, so disastrous, and so completely insane that the league office pretends they never happened. We're talking about games that were so bad they changed rules, ended lockouts, and made grown men throw bottles at referees. These aren't just upsets or blowouts. These are the games that made Roger Goodell wake up in cold sweats, wondering how the hell his billion-dollar empire could look so amateur. Today I'm exposing every single one of these disasters, and by the end of this video, you'll understand why the NFL has spent decades trying to bury these moments. From replacement refs who couldn't tell a touchdown from a turnover, to weather so bad players literally disappeared. These are the games that prove even America's game can be an absolute train wreck. Let's start with the disaster that was so bad it ended a lockout overnight and changed how the NFL handles labor disputes forever. The Fail Mary, September 24, 2012. The 2012 season started with a problem that seemed minor at the time, but would explode into the biggest officiating controversy in modern NFL history. The real referees were locked out over what seemed like pocket change. The league wanted to save about $3.2 million per year on referee pensions and benefits. So they brought in replacement officials, mostly from high school and small college games, to officiate the biggest sport in America. For 3 weeks, these replacement refs stumbled through games with blown calls, confused players, and frustrated coaches. But nobody was prepared for what happened on Monday Night Football in Seattle. The Packers were leading the Seahawks 12-7 with 8 seconds left when Russell Wilson took the snap from his own 24-yard line. He scrambled right, then heaved a desperation pass toward the end zone where Golden Tate and Green Bay's M.D. Jennings were battling for the ball. What happened next looked like a clear interception. Jennings had both hands on the ball, came down with possession, and the Packers started celebrating what should have been a game-sealing pick. But the replacement officials saw it differently. Side judge Lance Easley signaled touchdown while back judge Derek Roan Dunn signaled touchback. After a brief conference, they ruled it a touchdown, giving Seattle a 14-12 win they absolutely didn't deserve. The real kicker? Even if you somehow thought Tate caught the ball, he clearly pushed off Packers defender Sam Shields before the catch, which should have been offensive pass interference. The replacement refs missed that too. Green Bay players were furious, Coach Mike McCarthy was livid, and the entire football world erupted in outrage. Within hours, everyone from President Obama to random fans on Twitter were roasting the NFL for the blown call. The hashtag replacement refs was trending worldwide, and sports media was having a field day. The league's credibility was in free fall, and they knew it. Just 48 hours later, they reached a deal with the real officials, ending the lockout and admitting they'd rather pay the money than continue this embarrassment. The Fail Mary didn't just cost Green Bay a win, it proved that the NFL's obsession with saving money could destroy the integrity of the game itself. And it showed that sometimes the most expensive mistake is trying to be cheap. But if you think that was the worst officiating disaster, wait until you hear about the game that literally caused a riot and forced the NFL to change their review rules. Bottlegate, December 16, 2001. Cleveland Browns fans had endured decades of heartbreak, from the drive to the fumble to watching their team literally move to Baltimore. But this game against the Jacksonville Jaguars pushed them over the edge in the most spectacular way possible. It was a cold December afternoon at Cleveland Browns Stadium, and the Browns were fighting for their playoff lives in just their second season back in the NFL. With 5:15 left in the fourth quarter, Jacksonville led 15-10, but Cleveland was driving. The Browns had the ball at the Jaguars' 9-yard line when quarterback Tim Couch dropped back and fired a pass to Quincy Morgan near the goal line. The pass appeared to be caught for a first down, and the officials initially spotted the ball and kept the clock running. Browns fans were going crazy, sensing a potential game-winning touchdown drive. But then, something bizarre happened. With 48 seconds left on the clock, referee Terry McCauley announced that the previous play was under review. The problem? Under NFL rules at the time, that play wasn't reviewable. You could only review scoring plays, turnovers, and plays where possession was in question. A simple completion that was already ruled, a catch couldn't be challenged or reviewed by the booth. The Browns players were confused, the coaches were screaming, and the fans were getting restless. After several minutes of delay, McCauley emerged from under the replay hood and announced that the pass was incomplete. The Browns would have to punt, essentially ending their chances of winning the game and making the playoffs. That's when all hell broke loose. Browns fans, already frustrated by years of losing and what they saw as another screwing by the officials, started hurling everything they could find onto the field. Bottles, beer cans, batteries, coins, and even a cell phone came raining down from the stands. The barrage was so intense that players from both teams had to run for cover in the tunnels. The officials stopped the game and cleared the field. For several minutes, it looked like they might have to forfeit the contest, which would have been the first NFL forfeit since 1921. Security guards with riot shields formed a protective barrier while stadium workers tried to clean up the debris. The PA announcer pleaded with fans to stop throwing objects, warning that the game could be forfeited. After a 16-minute delay, play resumed with the Browns punting from their own end zone. Jacksonville ran out the clock and won 15-10, but the real damage was to the NFL's reputation. The league was so embarrassed by the officiating error that they issued a rare public apology the next day, admitting that the play should never have been reviewed. The NFL also quietly changed their replay rules in the offseason, clarifying exactly which plays could and couldn't be reviewed. They implemented better communication protocols between the replay booth and the field officials to prevent similar confusion. But the damage was done. Bottlegate became a symbol of how bad officiating could literally cause fans to riot. The Browns missed the playoffs, Tim Couch's career never recovered, and Cleveland fans added another chapter to their book of heartbreak. But at least this time, they fought back, even if it was with flying beer bottles. Now, blown calls are one thing, but the next game was one using actual cheating that was somehow completely legal at the time. The Snowplow Game, December 12, 1982. Picture this. It's December in New England. There's a blizzard dumping snow on Foxborough Stadium, and two teams are locked in the most boring game in NFL history. The Patriots and Miami Dolphins had been battling for over 3 quarters without either team managing to score a single point. The field was covered in several inches of snow, making it nearly impossible to kick field goals or even complete basic plays. This was back when the Patriots played at Old Foxborough Stadium, a concrete bowl with artificial turf that became a frozen wasteland in winter. The Dolphins, used to playing in the Miami Heat, looked completely lost in the conditions. Both teams were struggling just to move the ball, let alone score. With 4:45 left in the fourth quarter and the game still scoreless, Patriots coach Ron Meyer decided to attempt a 33-yard field goal. Under normal conditions, it would have been a routine kick for John Smith, but the snow had made the field a mess. The spot where Smith would plant his foot was covered in several inches of powder, making it nearly impossible to get solid footing. That's when Meyer had an idea that was either brilliant or completely insane, depending on your perspective. He called timeout and motioned to the sideline, where Mark Henderson, a convict on work release who operated the stadium's snowplow, was standing by. Henderson had been hired as part of a prison work program and was responsible for keeping the yard lines visible during the game. Meyer told Henderson to drive the snowplow onto the field and clear a spot for the field goal attempt. Technically, there was no rule against it. The NFL had never thought they needed to specifically ban snowplows from being used during games. Henderson fired up the plow and drove straight to the 23-yard line, clearing a perfect spot for Smith to plant his foot and for the ball to be spotted. The Dolphins went absolutely ballistic. Coach Don Shula was screaming at the officials, demanding they stop the Patriots from using what he called mechanical assistance. But the refs had no rule to cite. It wasn't explicitly illegal, so they allowed it. Henderson cleared the snow, creating a clean patch of artificial turf in an otherwise snow-covered field. Smith lined up for the kick with perfect footing and a clear spot for the ball. He drilled the 33-yarder straight through the uprights, giving New England a 3-0 lead with 4:45 remaining. The Dolphins tried desperately to answer, but they couldn't move the ball in the snow and lost 3-0 in one of the most bizarre finishes in NFL history. After the game, Shula was furious, calling the snowplow unfair and demanding the league investigate. The Patriots, meanwhile, were celebrating a victory that came courtesy of a prison inmate with a snowplow. Henderson became an instant folk hero in New England, and the Patriots had won a game in the most creative way possible. The NFL was mortified. Within weeks, they passed a rule specifically banning the use of any mechanical devices to improve field conditions during games. The snowplow rule remains in effect today, ensuring that no team can ever again win a game with the help of heavy machinery. The Patriots went on to make the playoffs that season, while the Dolphins missed out partly because of this loss. Henderson served out his sentence and later became a minor celebrity in Boston, often appearing at Patriots events to retell the story of the most famous snowplow in sports history. Speaking of rules that had to be changed, this next game created one of the most controversial calls in playoff history and launched a dynasty. The Tuck Rule game, January 19, 2002. The Oakland Raiders came to Foxborough Stadium for a divisional playoff game feeling confident. They had the better team, the better quarterback in Rich Gannon, and they were facing a second-year quarterback named Tom Brady who was still largely unproven. The Patriots had made the playoffs, but nobody expected them to beat the Raiders, let alone make a Super Bowl run. For most of the game, it looked like the experts were right. Oakland controlled the action, building a 13-3 lead going into the fourth quarter. Brady was struggling in the cold and snow, and the Patriots' offense looked overmatched against the Raiders' aggressive defense. With less than 2 minutes remaining, it appeared that New England's season was about to end. But Brady led a touchdown drive to cut the deficit to 13-10, and the Patriots' defense forced a punt to get the ball back with 1:47 remaining. Starting from their own 46-yard line, Brady began what looked like a potential game-winning drive. He completed a pass to David Patton for 13 yards, then found Troy Brown for 6 more, moving into Raiders territory. With 1:43 on the clock, Brady took the snap and appeared to be looking for a receiver when Raiders cornerback Charles Woodson came on a blitz from his left side. Woodson hit Brady's arm just as the quarterback was bringing the ball back toward his body, and the ball popped loose. Raiders linebacker Greg Biekert recovered the fumble, and Oakland began celebrating what appeared to be a game-sealing turnover. The Raiders were already thinking about their next playoff game when referee Walt Coleman announced that the play was under review. Most people in the stadium, including the announcers, assumed it was just a formality. Brady had clearly fumbled the ball and Oakland had recovered it. Case closed. But after several minutes under the replay hood, Coleman emerged with a shocking announcement. The ruling on the field was overturned. It was an incomplete pass, not a fumble. The explanation involved something called the Tuck Rule, an obscure regulation that most fans, players, and even some coaches had never heard of. The Tuck Rule stated that if a quarterback starts to bring the ball back toward his body after beginning a throwing motion, it's still considered a forward pass even if he loses control of the ball. The rule was designed to prevent confusion about whether a quarterback was trying to throw or tuck the ball away, but it had rarely been called, and never in such a crucial situation. The Raiders were furious. Coach John Gruden was screaming at the officials, and players were arguing that Brady was clearly trying to tuck the ball away when Woodson hit him. But the rule was the rule, and Coleman's interpretation was technically correct, even if it seemed to defy common sense. Given new life, Brady drove the Patriots down for a game-tying field goal by Adam Vinatieri with 27 seconds left. In overtime, Vinatieri kicked another field goal to give New England a 16-13 victory and send them to the AFC Championship game. The Patriots went on to beat Pittsburgh and then upset the heavily favored St. Louis Rams in the Super Bowl, launching the Brady-Belichick dynasty. Meanwhile, the Raiders never recovered from the heartbreak, and their championship window slammed shut. The Tuck Rule became one of the most hated regulations in NFL history, especially among Raiders fans who felt robbed of a Super Bowl opportunity. The league eventually eliminated the rule in 2013, essentially admitting that it was a stupid regulation that caused more confusion than clarity. But the damage was done. A dynasty was born because of a rule so technical and ridiculous that the NFL eventually had to get rid of it. The Patriots won 6 Super Bowls over the next 2 decades, while the Raiders spent years wandering in the wilderness, always wondering what might have been if not for the Tuck Rule. But sometimes the disasters weren't about controversial rules. They were about referees who couldn't handle the most basic parts of their job. The Coin Flip Catastrophe, November 26, 1998, Thanksgiving Day. Football is supposed to be a celebration of tradition, family, and America's game. But this matchup between the Detroit Lions and Pittsburgh Steelers turned into a comedy of errors that made the NFL look like amateur hour. The game itself was forgettable, a typical sloppy affair between 2 mediocre teams. But what happened in overtime became one of the most embarrassing moments in league history. The Lions and Steelers were tied 16-16 after regulation, setting up overtime under the sudden death format that was used at the time. The coin toss would determine which team got the first possession, and in sudden death, that was often the difference between winning and losing. It should have been the simplest part of the referee's job. Flip a coin, listen to the call, award possession to the winner. Referee Phil Luckett had been officiating NFL games for several years and had never had a problem with a coin toss. But as he prepared to flip the coin at midfield, something went horribly wrong. Steelers running back Jerome Bettis was designated to make the call for Pittsburgh, and as the coin went into the air, he clearly called tails. The coin landed tails up, which should have given Pittsburgh the choice of whether to receive the ball or defer. But Luckett somehow heard heads, or according to some accounts, claimed Bettis said heads-tails, and awarded the choice to Detroit. Bettis immediately protested, insisting that he had called tails, but Luckett stuck with his decision. The Lions chose to receive the ball, drove down the field, and kicked a field goal by Jason Hanson to win 19-16. The Steelers never even got to touch the ball in overtime, losing because of what appeared to be a referee's hearing problem. Bettis was adamant that he had called tails, and many observers agreed with him. After the game, the controversy exploded. The NFL reviewed the incident, and while they never officially admitted Luckett was wrong, the embarrassment was severe enough that they immediately changed their coin toss procedures. From that point forward, team captains would have to make their call before the coin was flipped, not while it was in the air. They also required at least 2 officials to be present during the toss to prevent any confusion. The Steelers were left to wonder what might have been. They were fighting for a playoff spot and needed every win they could get. The loss to Detroit hurt their postseason chances, and they finished the season wondering if a referee's inability to properly hear a coin call had cost them a shot at the playoffs. Luckett continued officiating for several more years, but the coin flip disaster followed him for the rest of his career. Steelers fans never forgave him, and the incident became a symbol of how even the most basic officiating duties could go wrong in the NFL. Miracle at the Meadowlands 2, December 19, 2010. The New York Giants had everything under control. With 5:40 remaining in the fourth quarter, they led their division rivals Philadelphia Eagles 31-10 at home in the Meadowlands. The game was over, or so everyone thought. Giants fans were already celebrating a division-clinching victory that would send them to the playoffs, while Eagles fans were heading for the exits. What happened next was one of the most spectacular collapses in NFL history. Philadelphia scored 28 unanswered points in less than 6 minutes, capped by a punt return touchdown by Deshaun Jackson with 14 seconds left to win 38-31 and keep their own playoff hopes alive. The collapse started when Eagles quarterback Michael Vick threw a 65-yard touchdown pass to Jeremy McLin with 5:32 remaining. The Giants still led 31-17, but suddenly the Eagles had life. New York's next possession stalled, and they were forced to punt. Philadelphia drove down and scored again, making it 31-24 with 3:10 left. The Giants needed just one first down to ice the game, but their offense went 3 and out again. With 1 minute and 16 seconds remaining, they punted to Jackson, who had already returned one punt for a touchdown earlier in his career. The Giants coverage team had one job: don't let Jackson beat them. They failed spectacularly. Jackson caught the punt at his own 35-yard line and immediately found a seam up the middle. The Giants' coverage was so poor that Jackson wasn't even touched until he was already in the end zone. He weaved through would-be tacklers like they were traffic cones, scoring the game-winning touchdown with 14 seconds left. The Giants went from celebrating a division title to watching their season fall apart in real time. They missed the playoffs, while the Eagles went on to win the NFC East. It was a collapse so complete and so devastating that it became known as the Miracle at the Meadowlands 2, referencing the original 1978 fumble that gave Philadelphia a shocking victory. And finally, there's the game that was so embarrassing, it became a permanent meme and symbol of franchise dysfunction. The Butt Fumble game, November 22, 2012. Thanksgiving night, 2012. The New York Jets were hosting the New England Patriots on primetime television, hoping to salvage something from a disappointing season. Instead, they delivered one of the most embarrassing performances in NFL history, highlighted by a play so ridiculous it became an instant internet sensation. The Jets were already trailing 14-0 in the second quarter when quarterback Mark Sanchez took a snap from the Patriots' 18-yard line. He tried to hand the ball off to running back Sean Green, but the exchange was botched. Sanchez pulled the ball back and tried to scramble to his right, looking for running room. What happened next defied belief. Sanchez ran directly into the backside of his own guard, Brandon Moore, who was engaged with a Patriots defender. The collision sent Sanchez stumbling backward, and he fumbled the ball. Patriots safety. Steve Gregory scooped it up and returned it 32 yards for a touchdown. The Butt Fumble was born, and it instantly became one of the most replayed lowlights in sports history. But that wasn't even the worst part of the Jets' night. In a span of 52 seconds, they gave up 3 touchdowns and turned a competitive game into a 35-3 blowout. After the Butt Fumble touchdown, the Jets fumbled the ensuing kickoff, which New England recovered and returned for another score. Then, on the very next play from scrimmage, Sanchez threw an interception that was returned for yet another touchdown. 3 plays, 3 turnovers, 3 Patriots touchdowns, and a complete meltdown on national television. The final score was 49-19, but the damage to the Jets' reputation was far worse than any point differential. The Butt Fumble became a symbol of everything wrong with the franchise: poor coaching, bad execution, and an inability to perform under pressure. It was replayed endlessly on highlight shows, turned into countless memes, and became shorthand for epic failure. Sanchez never recovered from the embarrassment. His confidence was shattered, and he was benched later that season. The Jets spiraled into years of dysfunction, cycling through coaches and quarterbacks while never escaping the shadow of that Thanksgiving night disaster. The NFL has built a billion-dollar empire on the idea that every game is must-see television, featuring the best athletes in the world competing at the highest level. But these disasters prove that sometimes the most unforgettable games are the ones everyone wishes they could forget. From replacement refs who couldn't tell a touchdown from an interception to teams that found creative ways to cheat with snowplows, from coin tosses that went wrong to collapses that defied belief, these games remind us that even the most polished product can have some truly embarrassing moments. The league has spent decades trying to bury these disasters, hoping fans will focus on the highlights instead of the lowlights. But these games are part of NFL history too. The moments that changed rules, ended lockouts, and proved that sometimes America's game can be an absolute train wreck. If you want to see more of the stories the league doesn't want you to remember, smash that subscribe button and drop a comment about which forgotten disaster shocked you the most. Because we're just getting started exposing the games the NFL wants you to forget.